Hey guys, what's going on? Uh, we are back again with another DM chat. Um, Tonight we are going to be talking about Josh.
Adventuring.
Yep, everything that we do when we're not killing a whole bunch of shit. Um,
Or drawing penises on heads.
Give me 1 second. I just got to try to silence this damn phone because nobody bothers me until we're about to shoot. So.
Excuse me, there is a message for you.
Um, we're just gonna put it over here because it's a new phone and I can't figure it out right now. Anyway, if you're watching us on
It's a
YouTube,
do not disturb
oh yeah.
thing.
Um, if you're watching us on Facebook, or yeah, not Facebook, because you're not watching us on Facebook. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button. If you're watching us live, make sure to hit us up in the chat and become part of the conversation. This isn't just about us; it's about you too. It's about the community.
I love you too.
Um, so we will be visited by Anthony as well. He's gonna make his way here shortly. So, but we will start. We will start the conversation, and basically we're still working our way through the player's handbook. So, um, this is adventuring. So, Josh, why don't you give us a brief description of what the player's handbook says about adventuring?
Alright. So, this says delving into the ancient tomb of horror, slipping through the back alleys of Waterdeep, hacking the fresh trail through the thick jungles on the Isle of Dread. These are the things that Dungeon and Dragon adventures are made of. Your character in the game might explore forgotten ruins and uncharted lands, uncover dark secrets and sinister plots, and slay foul monsters. And if all goes well, your character will survive to claim rich rewards before embarking on a new adventure. Unless you're playing in one of Jesse's games, then you're probably dead. Oh wow, that's weird. It actually says that.
Actually, calls me out in the handbook.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a thing. Uh,
Yeah.
um,
It says this chapter covers the basics of adventuring life from the mechanics of movement to the complexities of social interaction. And we all know, as D&D nerds, we don't know anything about social interaction.
um,
Sorry, it said that too. Weird.
that's so weird. Um, I think this is like I I know it's very hack and slash like most of the time that we play, but I think this is like the biggest part. This is why I like adventures like Dragon Heist. Pretty excited about the new adventure that they're publishing here shortly. Um, the social interactions. Um, but also, so going through the chapter, Josh, what do we got? We got like the actual movement, right? So travel.
Yep,
Um,
we have time, we have movement, we have special types of movement like climbing, swimming, and crawling, jumping, activities while traveling, like stealth, drawing a map, foraging in the environment, vision and light.
so even in combat, like a lot of this stuff, um, a lot of this stuff applies. So we'll go over like just the basic stuff first and kind of get that out of the way. So what's the first thing on the agenda, Josh? Movement.
No, actually, it's time. Minutes, hours, days, rounds.
Okay. Okay. This is, to me, the subject of time in D&D is very it's different for everybody, right? Except for the standards, right? So combat, each round lasts about 6 seconds, and how I visualize it when we're doing combat is it pretty much happens all at once. So the first round is 6 seconds total. What's everybody doing in that first 6 seconds?
Right.
And that's kind of how I judge it. Um, so like you'll hear a lot if two people are attacking an enemy, one person hits them and then the other person misses. Well, it's because the person hit and knocked the enemy back, and that's that caused them to miss. But um,
So basically, you're saying for all the boys and girls listening, it's never your fault if you miss. Blame someone else.
right, always attack somebody that somebody already attacked, so it's not your fault. Everybody should be
Or
used to
attack
that
a
by now.
teammate. It's fine.
Yeah,
Sometimes friendly fire is needed.
yeah, just to keep them on their toes. Um, as far as like days and weeks and months are concerned, it's it's pretty much up to the DM to kind of keep that time. Right. So like you might only go through 3 sessions, but you could have been doing something for 3 weeks. A lot of sessions, especially if it took a while for us to get back together, it's just like, okay, well, what have you been doing for like a week? Or,
Or 5 years pass. Or
yeah.
10 years.
So I mean,
Was it 10?
it's a very weird time in D&D is a very odd concept to me.
Yeah, I think the most important ones, and that's for like a lot, at least for a lot of like spellcasters, is the scale of minutes and hours.
Yep. Yeah, and again, the DM's going to keep that, right? For the
Yeah.
most part. Um,
Hey,
hey,
Jules, welcome.
hey, what's going on? Um, feel free to jump into the conversation. Uh, it's not just us. Um, so yeah, the DM will keep most of that time. Um, so like if you cast a detect magic, I think that's up for like 1 hour.
1 hour.
So, you could be walking around for however long, but know that time is shorter in the game than it is in actual time. Unless you're doing something like a 5 minute boulder break, you can set a
And
timer.
then it's 10 minutes.
Yeah, then it's 10 minutes apparently, because I grabbed the wrong damn timer. Um, so the DM kind of keeps the time, and how time passes is gonna be different per DM, I think. But I try to keep that whole 6 second idea in my head. You know, especially
Yeah.
with yeah, no problem. This is if you have any questions while we're talking, just ask him. There he is. What's going on, Tony?
Hey.
He's sort of there.
Yeah. Jules, this is the place to learn. Whatever questions that you have, anything you want to, you know, even stuff that we went over. I'm sure that there might be something we can talk about because this is all basic bitch stuff.
Yeah,
Important but basic
we're
bitch.
literally going through the handbook. So I mean, it doesn't get any more basic than that. Um, So yeah, as far as well, Anthony figures out what's going on.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Hi, bud.
Yep.
Um, so all we're talking about right now, Anthony, is time passing. So we kind of went over, the whole 6 seconds. Uh, time passing's kind of the job of the DM to dictate. Um, I mean, there's really not too much to talk about time. You can read it in the handbook, and this is chapter what?
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8.
On page 181 of the handbook.
So, like I said, the DM will kind of dictate time. Combat rounds last 6 seconds, and again, the way I do it is it's 6 seconds total for that round.
All right. I mean,
There we go. Thank you.
Do other people do it differently?
Well,
Some
I've
do.
I've seen people say like they have 6 seconds in a round. So like, what they would do is if they have 5 people, it's 30 seconds.
Well, those people are wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm just yeah.
Excuse me, it's called the rule of cool. So.
I mean, I don't understand how you can defend saying, okay, my character's in combat for 30 seconds, but for 25 of it, they're just gonna stand there.
Just stand there.
Look, sometimes the booty hole is itchy. Okay, you got to take a second.
You might have to scratch, adjust your armor. That's 25 seconds. Have you ever tried to scratch your butt in plate mail?
I mean, I can barely scratch my butt as is.
It takes time.
Do you know how hard you have to adjust yourself before you swing a great axe? I mean, you can't let it dangle, especially if you're wearing a loincloth. Well, does that count as a second attack then?
It depends on the size of the sword.
1d4.
I mean, the closest thing I can come to that is trying to do it in like a flag vest, and that's
Yeah.
already fucking cumbersome. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I mean, I've. That's how it was always. That's how I always seen it. So like, that's kind of how I play it. I see DMs kind of do something different.
It's a difficult concept because you're breaking it down into a turn-based system and saying the turns are sequential, but they're happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But I can understand where the issue comes from, because there's a mental, for me anyways, there's a mental kind of suspension of disbelief, I guess, however you want to say it, however you put that, in terms of like, well, if all these people are doing all these things while I'm trying to do this, like, I might do something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can understand that, but that's not really how the game's played.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of like, even when I'm DMing, like you've seen it. Yes, it's 6 seconds, but because of your initiative order, you got there a second before. You know what I mean? So like, your character swings a great axe and puts somebody to their knees while Josh takes a shot. Well, Josh misses because as you drove him down, like of course it has to do with the dice roll, but as far as telling the story, I'm like, okay, well, as he puts him down to his knee, the arrow just goes over his head, and that's kind of how I tell the story.
I mean, you do a really good job of it, in my opinion, in terms of making it, I don't want to say engaging, not that it's not engaging, it's just that's such a blanche word that I don't like using it.
Yeah.
But you do a really good job of like describing the action, not just you swung your sword and like it did this, like.
Yeah.
I appreciate how much detail you go into, and it does make combat drag out sometimes depending on the encounter, and I think that's another important thing.
Yeah.
If what I found from DMing is if you're trying to play with 4 or 5 players and you have 5 enemies on the board, like take the time to concentrate on the things that are important or that are special.
Mm-hmm.
But if you try to make everything, if you try to do too much description, it just makes everything take too long.
Oh yeah, I mean the combat already takes long enough. You know what I mean? So like you gotta weigh that. Like um, perfect example for me is when on the live table, those guys walked in and they faced those bandits. There's like 30 bandits.
Right.
The only one that I was really concerned about was the main bandit. So that was the only thing that I was really describing, unless something cool happened. You know
Right.
what I mean? Or something absolutely ridiculous happened.
Well, I feel like if somebody crits, you have to
Oh yeah, yeah,
make that feel special because it's a crit.
yep,
If somebody,
yeah. One way
um,
or the other, a 20 or a 1. I'm
mhm,
I'm putting that in there.
right.
Oh, yeah, Jesse, you mean like how Shredder in my game, he got a 1, so and he was raging, so he cracked the ground because
Yeah,
he, like,
yeah. And I have a really and we'll talk about this probably later in the game with the whole critical fail, critical success thing.
Oof.
I'm kind of brutal with my critical fails. Like if somebody's close, they're getting hit, or at least attempting to. But every once in a while, nobody's done it yet, so I don't know if they're ready for it yet. But like you'll see me and they'll do a critical fail and I'll be like, do me a favor, just put a check mark by your weapon. I'm not telling them
Yeah,
why.
yeah.
So you get you
yeah,
get you
you
get
get
five
that
or
with
six.
Paul.
Dungeon dudes talk about this quite a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that they make this point a lot. It's not something that they've only made once. Like they harp on it, but I think that it's a good point and that it deserves to be harped on. The problem, if you really if you really stick to critical fail tables, or not critical fail tables, but having critical failure as a punitive thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that the character that effectively has the most chance to critically fail are the ones that are taking more actions or rolling more dice during a turn. So like
Yep.
a high level fighter, right? Because they're whereas a lot of martial classes, instead of increasing, I mean obviously everybody goes to 2 attacks or
Yeah.
3 attacks if you're a monk, or even you can go higher than that, but like fighters are the ones that really stand out in terms of like, oh, they attack 4 times, they attack 5 times. Now obviously if this is only if you're high teens and whatnot, the more times you roll the dice, the more chances you have a critical failure. So the problem with that, depending on how you execute it, like there's always a balance to it.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, the problem with that is you're telling me that the most skilled person has the most chance of failing miserably.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
yeah. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying there, but it's also the person doing the most. It's kind of like this. You know what I mean? If I tell you just in real life, if I tell you to jump on that forklift and move something real quick, right?
Mhm.
You jump on that forklift, you move something, you might have driven that thing for 10 years. So let's say we're all on the same level. We've been driving forklift for 10 years. I tell
Right.
you, jump on it, move something. All right, cool. But I'm on it all day. Who has more of a chance of damaging something or getting into an accident, or it's going to be the guy that's on it the longest. So
Right.
so the guy
Right.
doing the
But
most flailing with his sword is going to have more of a chance of.
I can understand what you're saying. I just have a hard time accepting that like Bruce Lee is the one that's gonna fuck up.
I mean, even Bruce Lee got hit in the face with nunchucks.
I I mean I get it. I get it. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
no, I get what you're saying. Like I get what you're saying, especially at higher
There's a
levels.
balance.
But
There's
there's
a balance to it. Is all I'm saying. Is like
right.
I don't mind. I don't mind DMs that use critical fail um things. I don't like DMs that feel like, oh, you rolled a 1, so like something ridiculous has to happen. Like and
Oh no, 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 no.
like
That's
that's more my thing. Like if you want to make somebody fail and it makes sense, like if somebody's shooting an arrow past somebody and you're
mhm.
like, oh, you failed, you hit that guy, like
Yeah, that
that's
happened
legit,
to me.
right? And to me, there is also like you should also have to make an attack roll against that person.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I know that you do. I
Yeah.
know that you do, but not everybody does.
Yeah. No, 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 no.
And if you
It's
want to,
not
and
going
if
to
you
be an
want to,
automatic hit. No,
right,
that's
and if you want to do it at disadvantage, that makes complete sense because it's technically like a sneak attack. You know, I understand that, like, but I do feel that there should be another layer. That it should be harder to accidentally hit a fighter than it is to accidentally hit a wizard.
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and
And that's
I feel like there should be another layer to that.
it depends. It's so like what I do personally is the only time that I ever really use a critical fail to like hit a friend is when somebody mobs like one creature and there's like 20 people around them and that ranger wants to shoot into a crowd.
Right.
That it's happening. That being said, the fighter, if he's swinging and all his party is around him, chances are he might hit one of them. But more often is he's going to hit something that he doesn't want to hit. He's going to hit the armor the wrong way. He's going to hit the ground. He's going to hit the wall. Something like
Well,
that.
and something that I've seen done and that I've done and that I actually liked was that throwing in,
1 second.
you know, provocation of attacks of opportunity.
Yeah.
Like you roll a critical fail and you're like dueling somebody, you provoke you provoke an attack of opportunity.
Yeah, I have
You
yet
know,
to use that, but I have seen that, and that did that does that does do it adds another cool mechanic
well,
to the
right,
critical fail.
right, and like to me that makes perfect sense. Like that to me is like, oh, you overswung, you left an opening in your.
Yep. And I've used something similar. So like, as they're swinging, they might, they swing a little bit too hard. They fall forward.
Mhm.
Now they're prone. They're still gonna have the, most of the time they still have their movement to get up, but it gives them that oh fuck moment. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, yeah. Again, going back to the initial conversation, this movement, all of this stuff is happening in 6 seconds. So you have to like I know everybody's when they're playing, they're just waiting for their turn. You know what I mean? So they're not really thinking about everything else that's going on. But like you have to think about it as you're in combat. This is 6 seconds happening all at once. So if you charge one enemy, everybody charges the same enemy. That's happening in 6 seconds. That's a lot of blades, a lot of arrows, and a lot of fireballs.
Mhm.
Just happening at once. You know what I mean? Um, which is again why you'll very, 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 very rarely see me have any of my people face like one big creature.
Yeah, it's. I think we either talked about this last week or we talked about it in person. It's just the action economy is so tough. You have to make, and it makes it even tougher because in order to make that single enemy a challenge, you have a very high chance of killing somebody outright on accident.
Yep, on the
You know,
first hit. Yeah.
that's the problem. Even for now, like a level 1 party is a completely different thing, but even for a level 2 or a level 3 party, unless you're swinging 3d6 or something like that off of a mob, it's not really that much of a challenge.
Yep.
And the problem is that if you are swinging 3d6, and you hit a crit or you hit 3 6s, that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of damage.
Especially on that squishy wizard.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to balance. Something I have seen people do, like you were talking about with 30 bandits, is I guess there was a 4E rule, where you would use a stat block for like the attack and everything, but everything would just have 1 HP.
yeah.
So it was
It's
like,
the Oh, I knew it until you said something. The minion,
yeah, yeah,
the minion
yeah,
rule.
like
Yep.
where you have 30 bandits and they use the same stat blocks, they have the same abilities and everything like that, but they only have 1 HP. So that it's like, oh, okay, you scored a hit, that the guy, this guy falls over, that guy falls over.
Yep.
It's pretty classic in my opinion, like Lord of the Rings. You imagine those fights. Aragorn, like most of the guys, he takes one swipe at them. If he hits them, they fall over. They don't get back up.
Right.
Only
Yeah.
only the orc chieftain or whomever is actually makes the fight.
Yep. Yeah, and I use that. I didn't for that scenario. Um, there was a reason. Oh, because it didn't go the way that I planned it, but which it never does. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's not how I planned it out. So when it happened, I was just kind of like, rolling with what I had. And that being said, I did run like, some of them had less HP than others. The ones that were in the front line just doing absolutely nothing. But I also wanted it to be a little bit of a challenge. Here to find out that night nobody could roll dice at all. So
Yeah.
it was just a very long encounter of swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss.
Yeah, that gets to be not very fun.
Yeah. So we're like 30 minutes into the combat, and it's just like, okay, let's just take a break. We'll come back.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah, well, that's where that's where the wizard has to pull out some like fireball or something. So it's even like, even if they roll great, they're still taking half
Yeah.
damage.
um. So Josh, it's just talking about general movement, right? We're not talking about travel yet.
Oh, movement? No, movement. The first thing it says is speed.
Okay.
But then travel pace is the next thing.
Okay. So we'll talk about speed for a little bit. We're just going to touch on a lot of these subjects because I think some of the other subjects that we have in this chapter are worth mentioning a little bit more so than others.
Yeah.
In general, your PCs will have a basic movement speed of 25 to 30 feet, unless you're a monk with mobile, and then you have like 3,000 feet. But for the most part, your basic stats are going to be 25 to 30 feet. That being said, if you're playing grid, like, it's really easy to tell what that is. Theater of the Mind, it's a little bit harder to judge distance. I love playing Theater of the Mind, but more so I like playing on a grid because it, to me, is a little bit more tactical. I'm thinking more tactically if I can see the battlefield. That's just to me. I have other people that are like, no, the exact opposite. But I played for years with Theater of the Mind. Just recently have I gotten into minis because we was Poe. So we didn't have many. We might have had like some pocket change if we really needed to like lay out a scenario, but yeah, nothing compared to adult D&D.
Yeah, that's kind of how everything gets when you get older.
Yeah.
And then you realize that these are all money pits as well.
Don't I could swing this camera and show you. It's just bad.
Well,
It's
I don't understand where the saying then, money can't buy happiness. Like, you see my like
yeah,
look at my map table. Like,
yeah,
deal.
yeah. You never see somebody ripping across the ocean on a skidoo looking pissed off. It's just not gonna
It's
happen.
like it's like, how's Kanye put it? Having money isn't everything, but not having it is.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's just your basic movement, right? So your basic movement is 30 feet. If you're climbing steps, you got to take that into consideration. You can move backwards, forwards, lateral. I think they talk about climbing and stuff later, which we'll get into when we get into that. Actually,
you talk about difficult terrain here too.
yeah, let's actually just talk about those. We'll just knock out movement in general. So most of your characters, so your actual speed is based off of the highest number that you get on speed, and what I mean by that is, how
many pills you pop.
So if how many hits you take. So if you have a walking speed of 30 feet and a climbing speed of 30 feet, you have a total movement of 30 feet. You can walk 20, climb 10, but that's your movement. Now, if you have a walking speed of 30 and a flying speed of 60, you could fly 60, or you could fly 50 and then you have 10 feet of walking speed. So it's the initial movement.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost. I mean, this is where we can disagree. So go for it.
I mean, I look at it as, you have your movement and different modes of locomotion count against it at different rates. So
well, you want to know what the book says?
No. Let Anthony finish what he's saying first.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Given your scenario, what I would say is, so like, I kind of work off of the 30-foot movement, and everything kind of works against that. Like rough terrain, obviously counts double against that 30. If you have a flight speed of 60, then it counts as half, like when you use it up. So in that case, for me personally, the way I look at it is, if you have a movement of 30, a flight of 60, and you fly for 50 feet, and then you want to walk, to me, you'd only have 5 left.
Yeah. You're right. No, you're right. That's
proportionally, that's how you're taken away from that pie. That's how I see it.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's how I see it too. I was just I don't know why I said 10, but you're exactly right. Yeah, I mathed wrong. So yeah, in the same aspect, if I move 15 feet, I can still fly 30.
Yeah.
Using the highest number as my general general movement.
Now my question would be to you is, because movement speed only really counts when you're in combat. Other than that, it's not really something that if would you allow a climbing character to dash and double their climb speed?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because they're using their entire action. You know what I mean?
I agree. To me, if you want to use your action economy to dash, then you just doubled your movement speed, regardless of what the mode of locomotion is. I'm just curious how you see it.
No, I mean, me personally, I take the dash action as any kind of movement. So, if you run 30 feet and you want to fly over the pit, you can dash, and you know what I mean. I would say completely, yeah. But Josh, you tell us the books, how the book tells us.
So this is climbing, swimming, and crawling. It says each foot of movement costs 1 extra foot, 2 extra feet in difficult terrain when you're climbing, swimming, or crawling. You ignore the extra cost if you have a climbing speed and use it to climb, or a swimming speed and you use it to swim.
Right.
At the DM's option, climbing a slippery vertical surface or one with few handholds requires a successful strength at athletics check. Similar, gaining any distance in rough water might require a successful athletics check.
Right. So if they don't have that mode, right? So if you don't have a climbing speed, your climbing speed is 15 feet in combat.
Right.
If you do not have a climbing speed. Crawling, I've yet to. Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. I've never crawled because I get on my knees for no one.
Yeah, I can't. I feel like we've had a couple. Not we, but I feel like I've been in games where characters got knocked prone and felt that instead of spending the movement to get up and then
Crawling
walk,
would be a better.
yeah, like I feel like there's been times where they've said, no, screw it, I'm just gonna crawl this way or crawl that way. But I mean, that's
Yeah. I could see like crawling through a tunnel or something like that. Um, I think, yeah. And rough terrain, definitely. Uh, I don't very often put rough terrain into my combat, but I probably should.
That's what spellcasters are for. We do it for you.
Yeah. Um,
Except when you have fucking misty stuff.
or a flying speed. Um, yeah, yeah. No, I think we're all in agreement on movement. I think that's kind of a basic thing. But again, you have to have those notated speeds, right? Like you have to have a swimming speed or you have to have a climbing speed because normally that's a racial feature. Or you pick it up, however it is that one picks said things up. So, um, is there anything else that we want to talk about on movement? Like just general movement?
Jumping?
Yeah, let's talk about jumping. Let's talk about jumping. I think what we're going to do first, though, is we're going to have you read the rule because I know I do mine different.
Alright. So it says your strength determines how far you can jump. Long jump. When you make a long jump, you cover a number of feet up to your strength score if you move at least 10 feet on foot immediately before the jump. When you make a standing long jump, you can leap only half that distance. Either way, each foot you clear on a jump costs a foot of movement. This rule assumes that the height of the jump doesn't matter, such as jumping across a stream or chasm. At your DM's option, you must exceed a DC 10 strength athletics check to clear a low obstacle, no taller than a quarter of the jump's distance, such as hedge or low wall. Otherwise, you hit it. When you land in difficult terrain, you must succeed a DC 10 acrobatics check to land on your feet. Otherwise, you land prone. And then there's high jump too.
Yeah, I don't follow that personally. Anthony.
I don't think anybody does. I don't. I honestly, like, I play with you. I play with Brandon. I've run my own games. I've played for, like, at this point, I've probably played, including myself, with a half dozen DMs. I've never played with one that uses that rule to the letter.
Mm-mm. I mean, I'll take bits and pieces of it, but realistically, like, here's the problem, right? Here's the problem that I have: jumping and strength. Like, yes, I get it. you need strength to jump.
Mm-hmm.
But who's gonna jump higher? Okay, who's gonna jump higher? A world's strongest man
Mm-hmm.
or a gymnast?
Well, see, I wish there was this event that they put on every year where they took like world-class athletes of all shapes and sizes and made them do ridiculous things like jump in the air. And then we measured it and we could compare these things and then I could answer that question. Oh wait, we do. Yeah. Fucking skinny people jump higher.
Yeah,
I mean, come
I
on.
mean, so yeah, no, I like this is how I do it. This is how I do it. Do I think they can make the jump? I give them a DC, and then based off of that, I'll normally do like acrobatics or athletics. I'll let them choose which is higher.
Hmm.
And if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they go for a swim or fall into a pit of lava or fall into a pit of just black icus.
Or cross a chain tightrope and you don't actually
Yeah,
need
it's
to. Just pretend gold, and when you fall, dewdrop.
I'm so surprised that happened. I there are so many variables that go along with this because the other thing too is like basing it on strength makes sense if you're talking about two beings of equal size and like thickness, let's say.
Right.
And also, see, the other problem with this, in my opinion, is that typically, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, barbarians, but your strong characters are usually wearing armor that's heavy as shit. And
Yeah.
that, like, I understand, like, oh, I'm not encumbered. Dude, I don't give a crap, okay? If you're wearing 50, 60 pounds of gear around, it's
It's
gonna
still
affect
heavy.
you.
Yeah, it's still
Yeah.
heavy.
like I get it. You've trained and you're like proficient and like you've trained in how to deal with it, but like it's still fucking tough.
Yeah, trust me.
It's
I've worn body armor that wasn't even like close to being heavy, and it was still like, yeah, I'm not gonna try that. I'm not gonna try
yeah.
Well,
that.
that's like swimming. You're not gonna swim in heavy armor. You're gonna
See.
sink.
I, I the swimming I have so many issues with. I'm in a campaign where we did an entire session in the water, and
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
it's like I get so aggravated, and you know that I get aggravated over stupid shit anyway. So, like, but like I'm like looking at this, and I'm like, wait, my water skin weighs 5 pounds, but water, if you put water in water, it doesn't fucking weigh anything.
Right.
Like I understand, yeah, like if I have metal armor on, like that's an issue. I get that, but like some of this shit doesn't make any sense. So like that's and all I'm really saying there is like don't get too technical with it because like the more technical you get with it, the less sense it makes.
Yeah.
Because specifically, and we're talking about water, and I'm sorry that I'm tangenting, but specifically when we talk about water, like weight's important, density is more important. There's no way to sit here and talk about density of items. It's just not
No,
practically,
no.
you
No.
know.
That's a whole other
But
book.
well, exactly. So like using the weight stat that goes along with your gear is meaningless
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned when you're talking about going in water. If you're talking about going in water and trying to use the weight stat to mean anything, you're just going about it fundamentally wrong because it doesn't, not
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter the way it's being presented. But
Right.
that's, you know.
No, I agree.
Unless you're a warforged, then you probably will sink and just walk across the bottom of the water.
Right,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, I mean, it's tough. Give your players magic items that they don't have to deal with it.
Yep.
You know, like if they're being real dickheads, don't. But like, if they're at all decent, just give them some nonsense that they can cast every day and gives them water breathing for a day.
Yeah, but every once in a while screws up. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways. In my opinion, there's other ways to go about it. There's already so many complications with fighting underwater. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like there's so many complications already that like
Under any kind of water-based combat is a completely different system in itself.
That's next week.
Yeah, like that's just I think that's why I've avoided, like, I was so glad when they didn't get on the pirate ship. Cuz I was like, I don't want to deal with that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's tough.
Um,
But yeah, jumping though. One thing I will point out, this comes from a pet peeve of mine. I can't stand it when DMs call for ability checks, call for skill checks. That's a pet peeve of mine.
a skill
I
check.
just want to point. Yeah. Just want to point out all of the things that they're talking about here is skill checks, athletics, acrobatics.
Yep.
At no point does it say make a naked strength check.
Yeah.
Like, DMs do it. It's fine. That's their prerogative. I can't stand it.
Though if you're naked in my campaign, I will definitely make you make a naked strength check.
A naked strength check.
Oh yeah.
Depending on what you're doing, you may get advantage or disadvantage. Hey, we don't know the situation. It's a don't ask, don't tell kind of D&D.
Can you use it as a? Oh no, I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, in my opinion, there shouldn't be any just straight strength saving throws, or not saving throws.
No, saving throws I'm fine with.
Yeah,
Saving throws
I'm
are
sorry.
their own thing.
Ability
That's cool.
checks, because strength is not an ability. In my mind,
it's an attribute,
right?
Like I'm a blue collar worker. I've done physical labor all my life. You can be as strong as you want to be. There is always ways to give yourselves advantage in doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is what proficiency in athletics is.
Yep.
Okay, like you can try to open a door really hard, or you can do it in a way that it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I don't unless it's a saving throw. I'm not calling.
oh yeah, and like I said, saving throws are a completely different thing. I get slightly irritated when DMs go with straight ability.
Give me a strength check. That. Okay.
I think Brandon did it last week. I forget what the context was, and it's like I said, it's whatever. I'm used to people doing it. It just irritates me.
I mean, it may slip once in a while, maybe, but I normally catch myself even when I'm doing that. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is, okay, so jumping's a perfect example. Jumping or escaping a grapple, you'll see me do this often. You have two things that are going to attribute to you getting out of that grapple, for me personally, or jumping: your dexterity or your strength. I might say, see, it even sounds dirty when I try to say it. Give me a strength, give me a dex check. That just, it sounds bad. I wouldn't. So,
right.
but what I mean by that is, give me an athletics, or give me a acrobatics. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, saving throws are one thing, but blind attribute rolls, I don't like it. That's why they break it up into those. So I'm actually in agreement with you there. But it
Yeah,
has slipped once in a while. Like if I'm picking up a boulder or something,
yeah,
But as soon as the player says, "Can I use, you know, uh, athletics?" Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, that's kind of
right,
what I meant.
right.
But only with strength, because every other one just sounds dirty to me as soon as it comes
No,
out of my mouth.
strength is typically the one that it comes up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I agree. Like I I think I may have played with someone who asked for a straight intelligence check once. Um, and it was one of those things where, in my opinion, it should have been give me a history or arcana or you
Right.
know what I mean? Because it was one of those like somebody, we were doing a check that that was one of those ones that could cover a lot of bases.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, they just asked for a straight int roll. Um, which
Uh,
if the DM is dealing with it on their side of the screen where they're adjusting the DC to account for the fact that it's impossible to be proficient in it. Like if they're dropping the DC, like say for an athletics check, I set it at 14, but I just asked for straight strength, but all of a sudden that check becomes a 10, right? Like I've taken the proficiency away from the
oh, I
DC.
see. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like if they're doing that on their side of the screen, like that's okay, but I, as a player, would prefer the transparency of asking for the proficiency check.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's the reason that you have proficiencies. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And there's very few things that I can think of off the top of my head, even in an intellectual basis, that it wouldn't fall under, religion, history, or I don't have a character sheet in front of me, but I know there's one more.
Yeah, like I
But
think it is like Arcana, history, religion.
yeah, Arcana,
Um,
that's what it was.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we went a totally different direction there. But I
We
think we're done.
definitely.
I think we're done with movement.
Sorry, that's a
No,
pet
that's
peeve of mine.
this is
It's a
how it
pet peeve of
goes.
mine, and yeah.
Trust me. Uh, this is why I said if you have any questions in the chat, just ask because we're gonna go off on a tangent. We do it every time, and it just so I'm not even
Well,
100% sure what the next one is, but I'm sure we're gonna go off. We'll cover it.
yeah, and but the thing is also that these are the types of things that come up in real games.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so it might mess the schedule up in terms of like how much you want to get done in an episode or
Oh, I
whatever.
don't
But
care. We're here
like
every Wednesday.
at the same time, this is the kind of stuff that comes up. Like,
Hmm.
like I asked you about dashing during climbing. Like that
Hmm.
shit comes up.
Yep.
If I'm climbing and I gotta climb more, I'm gonna be like, hey, can I dash?
So I
You
think
know,
just in general, you know, what I do, especially like if I'm faced with like if I'm a player and I'm faced with like a new DM, you're always gonna have shit that's gonna come up in game, like not thinking about it. But
mhm.
like I always try to I will defend my stance without being an ass, right? Like you were saying about the water skin, right? Well, why is that water skin weighing me down? It weighs nothing in water,
Right.
and I'll defend my stance. If you have a DM, so as a player, like just be respectful towards the DM because it is the DM's world. I mean, it's everybody's world, but he might not see it the way that you see it. That being said, if you have a dickhead DM, he's not going to care. He's just going to go with what the rules say in the book or whatever he decides. But for the most part, like I've yet to have a DM like that. Um, Also, as a DM, remember everybody is there to have fun. So don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. If it makes sense, or or somebody can validate why I would be doing something or why they would be doing something. Like, you'll hear me do this a lot too. Like, if it's a rule that I don't know, this is what. Yeah, just don't be a dick in general.
Yeah.
But if it's a rule that I don't know, this is what we're gonna do this time. When we're done, we'll discuss it, and then it'll come up. The next time we do it, we may rule it different, but just so you know, this is how we're gonna do it for this time. So I think people tend to take shit too seriously when they sit down sometimes to play. It's a game. You're there to have fun, not to stress out.
Excuse me, there is a message for you.
That makes me think of the day that we were all playing and we were in the rift. We were fighting those like really big void monsters, and I don't know if you or Chase were DMing at the time, or Chase was DMing at the time. You were a hyena. You're the one who picked up the orc dude.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, when I was like, hey, you mentioned that it's storming. Yeah, they're magical clouds, but I have call lightning.
Yeah.
Like, can I use that storm as my lightning?
Yep.
I could have killed that fucker too. I was so close. Yeah, exactly, Julie.
Oh, do we have actual people today?
Yeah.
I'll have to get on Twitch.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't even realize. We'll read them if I forgot that they're popping up.
Yeah, that's why you're my friend, Julie, because you're a spaz like everyone else.
So is there anything else in movement that we want to cover before we move on?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, marching order is important, but
That's while traveling. Calm your tits.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's
marching order is actually next.
Yeah. Let's take a real quick 5 because my teeth are floating, and then we'll get back to I think what's next, Josh? You said marching order.
Yep,
is the
it's
next
activities
thing.
while traveling. So marching order, stealth, noticing threats, so like passive perception.
Oh god.
Navigating, foraging, that kind of stuff. So.
Okay.
Stealth is coming up. That should
yeah,
be fun.
So get ready for another tangent, guys.
Yeah.
A couple.
Fucking stealth.
Fuck.
Oh man.
Jesus. All right, we'll be back in like 5 minutes. And we're back. Sorry, offline shit. So what are we talking about now?
Marching order.
Right.
Yes, marching order.
Okay. So to me, as a DM and a player, marching order, especially like going through uh, any kind of caverns or dungeon, the marching order is very important as a player and as a DM, because the marching order pretty much says, okay, I'm going first, right? So like you have to balance some of that stuff. Who do you want going first? Do you want that person that can pick up things uh, perceptively and see things, or do you want the tank to go first? Uh, and it all depends on the group. All depends on the group. Me personally, if I'm the perceptive character, a lot of the time, I would think that I'm smart enough not to want to go first. I'll go first if I have to, but
I think it depends a lot on your party
Yeah.
makeup. I mean, for me, the most I'm trying to think. See, I don't think that I think ideally for me personally, if we're playing like Baldur's Gate and I have control over all the characters, one of them's a rogue, right? And to me, that's the person that goes first because they can stealth, scout ahead, etc.
Yep.
I've never played in a party with a rogue though, not that I can remember. I think the closest was probably Scythe. Was that your monk's name?
Oh yeah, Sai. Yeah,
Scythe.
he was the closest. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I would want the perceptive character to go first, but I've never actually played with one.
Yeah, like a perfect example is in Josh's game on Mondays. I play a bard, um, but I'm not like the stereotypical bard.
Mhm.
I dropped like
That's for
90.
sure.
Yeah, like I dropped 90% of my points into intellect and wisdom, because I'm going for more like a Sherlock Holmesy character,
Okay.
sort of. And then he kind of took a life of his own. He's a little bit more smart ass. He would be like a young alcoholic Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
So Sherlock Holmes
Yeah,
from the movie.
from the movie, yeah. Um, so in that game, often I kind of sit back and just do my own thing. But like more often than not, the tank goes first, right? Because it's a bunch of squishy characters, and I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna hang out in the back, and then from the back, like I'll just walk off. And just
Yeah, like when everyone was or when Devon got attacked by the rug, and you're like, oh, someone screamed. Oh well, I'm gonna go look for treasure.
Yeah. I mean, but marching order is important, right? Because your first person in the marching order is going to do a lot of things, right? They're gonna pick up the first and the last person, actually. Uh, Actually, if you really think about it, every position in the marching order has something to do with something, right? So in my
Well, yeah, it's kind of like how you put a stack together.
yeah, I mean in my mind, my perfect marching order would be somebody perceptive and stealthy in the front. Second would be some kind of tanky character. Your middle character would be a healer, and then reversed. You would want the perceptive person in the back. You're not really worried about stealth at that point, but you want somebody that can cover the rear, or at least give a heads up, and then a tanky character. Probably so I'm talking with a 5-person stack. Your fourth person would be ideally would be like somebody that can handle their own in melee, but I would like a range character on there. That's me, ideally, right? So that way you got the stealth and the perception up front, so he's the one scouting everything out. Your tank character's there to watch just in case he catches himself in trouble. Your healer's in the middle so that he can reach both ends. Your ranger is behind the healer to not only cover the rear, but if he needs to reach out and touch somebody, he can reach out and touch somebody. And then your perceptive character in the back just waiting for that big bad to come out from nowhere. That's me.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand your ideal. I would, at least in my imagination, the way I imagine what you're saying, like, I don't imagine any arcane casters in that stack.
No, there's not.
Like, I feel like your stack's like rogue, barbarian, cleric, fighter, ranger.
Well, okay, you could have yeah, your cleric's definitely in the middle. Your cleric or your druid, or
right.
is in the middle. So
Yeah.
your tanky character is definitely going to be like your fighter or your barbarian. Up front is going to be like your bard or your rogue or your ranger, depending on the stealth. But your range person, that could be your caster. That could definitely be your caster.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's.
Yeah. You definitely want the casters towards the back. They're squishy.
Yeah, I mean,
and close to the cleric.
It's so dependent on your party makeup that
Mhm.
it's a difficult conversation to have
Without
ambiguously.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if we talk about different campaigns, different class makeups and things like that, like we can, but then we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah. But I mean, the main three positions that I would have in any stack, no matter what they are: stealthy person up front, healer in the middle, perceptive in the back. On almost anything that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. The overlap there.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, I pretty much said fuck casters with my stack. It's fine.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a tough conversation to have ambiguously.
Yeah. So Josh, what does the book say about marching order? Anything that we wouldn't have covered?
Let's see. It says a marching order makes it easier to determine which characters are affected by traps, which ones can spot hidden enemies, and which ones are the closest to those enemies when a fight breaks out. A character might occupy the front rank, one or more middle ranks, or the back rank. Characters in the front and back ranks need enough room to travel side by side with others in their rank. When space is too tight, the marching order might change, usually by moving characters to the middle rank. Fewer than 3 ranks. If an adventuring party arranges its marching order with only 2 ranks, they are front rank and back rank. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, most of your traps. Well, I mean, it all depends on the trap, right? So I've already sprung traps that by the time you see it, unless you deactivate it, it's already too late. You know what I mean? Like, you're in the middle of the room, it's hitting the whole party. But for the most part, your front guy is going to get those traps. He's going to get the brunt end of them, whether it's finding them or getting the actual damage from them. He's your guy.
Or the cause to make them worse.
Yeah. But he's also going to be the guy that sees the enemies first. You definitely want that stealthy character up front. And most of the time with that stealthy character, you're going to want somebody with the ability to pick a lock up front. Or close to the front. And it also, again, we're pretty ambiguous here. So we're also, the way that I always visualize it is a hallway that's just wide enough for the group to walk down in single file. Because that's how I like to screw people. That's how I like to fuck up the group. Get them real nice and tight. Can I walk around? Nope. But I'm an asshole, so.
Yes.
I don't know. Anthony, do you have anything to add to marching order? I think we pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, not particularly. Like I said, it's highly dependent on group makeup. I kind of like how Brandon does it. When we did Death House, and we just kind of say a marching order, and then we kind of say where we're going, and we're not really moving our characters all around the board to accomplish it. I think it's a nice way to streamline it and simplify it.
Yep, for bigger maps where I'm going to be running a lot, that's what I'll do. If we're going to run with minis, I'll take the minis and I'll put the minis in a marching order.
Mm-hmm.
And then move them to the side just so I can see who's first. And then once there's interaction that needs to be done, then we can talk about, where you're actually located.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, in adventuring, the marching order is relatively important. But yeah, what's next, Josh?
Stealthing.
Son of a bitch.
Yep. Hang in for the long haul, kids.
Okay.
I find that stealth is one of the there's the widest range of how different DMs do it in the entire game. I feel like the way the rules are laid out are so vague that it's just.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's just that's all. That it's just one of the things that I find that is so DM dependent.
Yeah. Well, let's see what the book says. Josh, what does it say about stealth?
All right. While traveling at a slow pace, the characters can be move stealthily. As long as they are not in the open, they can try to surprise or sneak by other creatures they encounter. See the rules for hiding in Chapter 7.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's can't be any more vague than that.
Well, and it does expand on it a little bit, you know, when it talks about taking a hide action or attacking from stealth, but not much.
Yeah, I run it how I've always run stealth. So like if I have 6 players, right, and they want to stealthily move through a dungeon, I will have everybody roll for stealth, and then I will take the general stat.
Yeah.
Right? So if everybody rolls, let's say my DC to sneak through this area is a 14. If out of those 6, only one, even if that one is a critical fail, no, if it's a critical fail, they're fucked.
No.
Yeah, if it's a critical fail, like they fell down, like it's just they tripped into a candle and now the whole place is on fire. Like,
well,
but
one of the things that. Sorry, go ahead.
But for the most part, if mostly everybody succeeds, then we're good.
One of the things that I find interesting with stealth is that because 5e doesn't work on a stacking bonus and penalty system. Roll advantage and disadvantage is supposed to offset but not stack. Like double disadvantage, double advantage, those things are homebrew.
Yeah.
They're raw, they don't exist.
Yep.
Now I've seen people do it, and I do agree that it should exist. Personally, I like to get double disadvantage, you have to have 3 things that are giving you disadvantage to get to, etc. Like each time you go up, you have to have twice as many things to get to the next rung.
Yeah.
But like I have seen, with stealth in particular, somebody wearing heavy armor that they're automatically stealthing at disadvantage and just sprinting while they stealth because they're already at disadvantage. There's no real penalty, so just screw it. Why not?
Yeah. No. See, that's gonna, because that wouldn't happen, right? For me, because
I get it. I understand. It's
yeah.
like I said. It depends on how they legislate it. One of the things that I like to see personally, and this goes along with what you were saying, in my opinion, is stealthier characters helping less stealthy characters stealth.
Yeah. And as far as movement goes, I mean, even with movement in, now I might not say it when we're not in combat, but one thing that I always take into consideration is if you're moving stealthily, you're moving at half speed.
Right.
So like the instant that that paladin takes off on a sprint, he is no longer moving stealthily. Doesn't matter. Like you're not moving stealthily if you're taking off on a sprint. You're not even rolling for that. You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to me that's common sense. But I agree with you. Like I've seen people do that, and it's like, well, no. You're not even moving stealthily at this point. You know what I mean? Like you're just, you can't move fast and stealthily at the same time unless you're a friggin' monk.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that rogues can also do it, and if
Rogue. I would say a rogue could be pretty quick.
I think there's certain feats that are along those lines.
Yeah.
And you could make a convincing argument depending on your character, your gear, etc., etc., etc.
Yep.
But yes.
On a situation, it's a situational basis, but no, you're not running in full plate mail and rolling for stealth. That's not how that works.
Now, when you have a character who is performing actions during a turn where they're stealthed, do you have them roll stealth, and then a stealth roll applies to everything they do during that turn? Or, like, for instance, if let's say a player wants to rummage through a drawer or something like that, do you have them roll, and I understand that this is DM's prerogative, but do you personally have them roll stealth to do the action also?
Yes.
Okay.
If it's dependent, right? So if you are trying to, let me put it to you this way. So that same scenario, this is where it becomes dependent. If I'm trying to search through a drawer while there are people standing close to it, absolutely. But more than likely, it won't be a stealth check. It'll be a sleight of hand check.
Okay.
Because to me, sleight of hand, I think sleight of hand is one of the least used.
Underrepresented.
Yeah. Because like sleight of hand, you're doing a lot with sleight of hand. Because for me, sleight of hand is your pickpocket, your thieves tools. You want to cheat at a card game. You wanna do something quiet and nimbly without anybody seeing you do it. That's sleight of hand.
Right, and my question is more of like not necessarily there's people around and but more like you're sneaking through a house, there's a guard in the house, the guard doesn't see you, but you want to, let's say you want to move 15 feet to a drawer to look for some jewelry inside of it. Obviously at some point during that turn you're going to have them roll stealth to move. Like, would you have them roll stealth? To me, sleight of hand is more of a visual thing. Like,
Yep.
that's tricking somebody as they're looking at you or as they're aware that you are there.
Yeah. So
What I mean is more of something like, if somebody doesn't know you're there, but you do something in their vicinity, like let's say during a turn you want to move, like I said, move to a dresser, look through a drawer for jewelry, are you going to have them stealth on the movement, on the search, on both?
It's going to be one roll for both.
Okay.
So for me, I would, if that's what they want to do, because here's the thing. I get a lot of people are stuck on rolling dice, and rolling dice is fun, but that's not the whole game. It's not role playing. It's role playing. Like,
Right.
you're not there just to roll dice. So if you come into a room and you say, "Hey, I want to sneak across the room, get into the drawer." Okay, I already have a CR. Uh-oh. Lost.
And he died.
Yep. He failed the CR. The guard's seen him and impaled him with his pike.
Great, now we have to get a new one.
I guess we're gonna have to roll for more.
Sorry, I had a connection hiccup.
It's fine. You failed your stealth check, and the guard got you.
I mean,
you shouldn't have ran with plate mail.
rolling it.
So yeah, I would have a CR for the entire action, and I would use that action, the entire action as stealth.
I'm sorry, I missed your whole explanation. Would you adjust the CR depending on what you wanted to do during that turn? Would moving across the room and searching the drawer have a higher CR than simply moving across the room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, I don't mean to get into the weeds, but this is as D&D players, this is what we deal with.
Yep. No, I mean, but it goes into what we were saying before, right? Because we're stacking actions at this point.
Right.
Right. So it's easier for you to get across the room than it is for you to get across the room and search through a cabinet.
Yeah. That being said, especially if you're playing a rogue, like after level 10, rogues get ridiculous. You
have like 30 expertise.
I can't imagine rolling a rogue and not taking expertise in stealth. I just can't. But then at 10 you get, what is it, dependable skill, where like you can't roll under a 10?
Yep.
Or something like that. So like you're almost like the lowest you could roll is like, depending on how your stats go and everything, like a 16, a 17. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that level though, you're not walking, like, as a DM, I'm not having you steal something out of a house that isn't like well protected.
Right. No,
you know what I mean?
I understand that. The idea that you can't roll under a 10 on a skill
Yeah,
check.
that's fucking ridiculous.
It's like,
That's ridiculous. I love, dude. I'm telling you, like, my first couple characters were rogues, and I
oh, rogues,
loved playing a rogue. I loved it.
rogues are great. I just have such a hard time. Like, it's one of my favorite classes. I have such a hard time committing to it, though. Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
like, it's one of those things that are really cool, but then like when I start looking at everything else and all the shiny shit they get, I'm like, I want to do an Eldritch Knight.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Like I've never, in all my characters, um, I've never played so many different variant in classes as I have recently. Like 90% of the time I was a rogue. That's what I
Yeah.
played. I would never play a bard because they were fucking stupid. If I wanted all that stuff, I could be a rogue. If I wanted expertise, I could be a rogue and I could still kill shit. Um, that being said, a lot of the games that I played, a lot of D&D games that I played when I was younger, there was only like one or two of us playing. So you had to pick something that you couldn't pick a support class. Who the fuck were you supporting? You know what I mean? So, so you were the barbarian, you were the fighter, you were the rogue.
Right. I think in 5e they do a lot better job at.
Oh yeah.
Support classes not being support classes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, that's what I said. That's when we were talking about classes, a couple of episodes ago, which you can catch on YouTube. You can make any character. You can make almost any character do anything with certain modifications.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So the nice thing is the character grows based off of your need. You know what I mean? Like it's just like your personality. It's just like your alignment. It's gonna change. You might need something that you didn't think of when you rolled that level 1 character at level 5. You know what I mean? So I might have to change it up. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I really wish I would have rolled a rogue when we played Waterdeep. I think that would.
I was surprised that nobody rolled a rogue. We
oh
were
my
literally
God.
doing a
After
game
our-
called Dragon
after-
Heist, and no one rolled a rogue.
It wasn't just that nobody rolled a rogue. It's that I rolled a barbarian, Becky rolled a fucking ranger, Brandon was a sorcerer, so that's cool. Izzy was a druid. Like, we had a perfect party to go out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
And do survival bushcraft shit. And we're doing a campaign that's completely 100% urban.
Yep.
Oh man, like we could have I mean that was my first character I'd ever made, like pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a barbarian with the Outlander background. I'm like, this is completely fucking pointless.
What the fuck am I doing here? Like it's.
oh, I can forage for food every day. Fantastic.
I'm gonna go to the market, which is right outside my door. Yeah. I don't know. That being said, it was everybody's kind of, y'all were new, like real new.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how long it's been. You know what I mean? Like I was thinking about it the other day. Like I was looking at some old videos, and we've been doing D&D. I've been doing it with relatively the same group for a year and a half.
Yeah, I think we started that table like last June, I want to say.
Yeah.
Something like that, last summer anyways.
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah.
Yeah, it's been a minute. We've all learned some things.
It's been a minute, but it's also feels like it hasn't been very long.
Yeah, no.
Because there's still a lot of there's still to put it in video game terms, there's not a lot of achievements that we
No, we have not unlocked a whole lot of achievements. Well,
No.
I mean, we went from Dragon Heist
Mhm.
for the Sunday games. We went from Dragon Heist
Yeah.
to
Well,
Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
and for context, our Sunday games are every other week.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
even over the course of a year, if you hit every single one, you're only talking 20, 26 sessions, something like
yeah.
that.
And
And
then
it
we
ended
had
up,
the Rona,
yeah, we had the Rona.
so we haven't played a full campaign yet.
Not even Dragon Heist was close-ish.
You
And I
got.
have such mixed feelings about Dragon
Did
Heist.
you read Dragon Heist after?
Not I kind of looked through it. There were some things where I was curious what was going on behind the screen,
Yeah.
and I like
Spoilers.
the well, I'm not even gonna get into that so much, but like the hideout where you go down and there's that kind of stuff, and there's
Yeah.
the mind flayer there. I guess that's a spoiler. Like I was kind of curious what was going on there, because I know we did spend some time with that podium trying to do different things and it didn't do anything, so I was curious if we just missed something,
Yeah.
and there were some things like that. There's a fucking sub in it.
Yeah.
Like if you do a certain season, that blew my mind, and I'm like, I have to put that in a campaign somewhere.
Yep.
Um,
Let me put it to you this way. If you didn't read the book, we literally got onto chapter 2 of the book. Like we didn't even start the main mission because you guys spent so much time doing the side missions.
yes.
So like we didn't even touch on the main mission.
Yeah. No. I got that impression. Like I
Yeah.
said, I didn't read it. I didn't read it cover to cover. If we don't get to play Avernus, I'm gonna have to do that with Avernus, because super psyched for Baldur's Gate, and that's the prequel to it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I just what I mean when I say I have mixed feelings about it is, it seems like a really cool campaign. I wish it was a campaign that I would have done as a more experienced player.
Yeah. I get that.
I feel like as a brand new player to tabletop, I didn't get as much out of the campaign as I would have if we did it, for instance, now. So
Right, and I think partially we did it. We did it partially because we wanted to, with new players. We wanted to prime new players for more social interaction than Dungeon of the Mad Mage hack and slash.
Right, and I can understand that. Like I don't think it's a bad campaign or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. It's just it's a much different rhythm than
Mm-hmm.
what I was kind of expecting, and it was uneven, I guess would be the best way I could put it.
Yeah, I mean, look at the party you had. It was definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's so much of it where I'm like, man, we should have had a fucking.
Did you guys at least get to meet the pirate dude?
Nope.
Aw,
They didn't.
he's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
They didn't get there yet. That, like, dude, I'm telling you, literally, when we played Dragon Heist, they got more wrapped up in the side missions, which is partially my fault, than the main missions.
Well, Well, and I think part of that was that the main mission feels less direct than the side missions, and we all
Yeah.
had kind of direct characters where we're like, oh, there's a dragon out in the harbor. Okay, let's go fucking see what this dragon wants.
Right.
Or well, let's go climb this mountain and see what's going on up there, and we'll come back. Like that,
Yep.
those felt more appropriate to our characters than
And they were.
than the kind of intrigue that the main mission entailed. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
and there was nothing
like-
wrong with it. Everybody had fun. It just,
Oh,
we
yeah,
didn't
it
get
was-
nearly as far as we would have liked.
Yeah.
I have to say that I think Dragon Heist has probably some of the best NPC characters in it.
Oh yeah, yeah, hands down. Hands down. They did meet Mert,
Yeah.
which was an interesting.
We met Mert, and we spent a lot of time at what's his face's shop. Shit, the purple dude.
Damn it.
I forget what his name is, but
Purple dude.
Yeah, the dude with the beholder in the window. Zoblop?
Zablov, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, spent a lot of time in there.
Did you guys go to the dungeons?
Nope.
Oh, that's my favorite part.
Yeah. No, like I said, we didn't get very far. But that too, I was the way that I was pacing it. I was pacing it to the idea of, we will get there, but I want them to get more of the background of the city.
I just remember being broke the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, not ever having any money.
Yeah. Where like some of the other campaigns that we play, it's like, how are we gonna spend this? Dragon Heist, it was like, can I just kill somebody for some bread? Like, and every time you got money, you had to pay somebody back, so it was fun.
Yeah, we need to we need to play that.
Yeah, I would love to play. I would love to play that one. Yeah.
Anyways.
Anyway,
Stealth.
There was one
So
tangent.
stealth. Stealth, yay. But I think we covered stealth like an hour ago. It's going to be DM discretion. Everybody does it a little bit differently. It's more descriptive in later chapters. But as far as stealth is concerned, that's just you sneaking around. Your DM should already, and like I said, I stack. If you want to do multiple things while you're stealthing, I stack so that your DC gets higher. Instead of having you roll like multiple things, right? I get that rolling dice is cool, but that's not the game. The game is the interactions and the ideas and the challenges to me. So, what's next?
We kind of went over like it's noticing threats, but we went over passive wisdom or like perception last time. So I don't really think we need to go over that again.
I think that last sentence, noticing threats, while traveling at fast pace, characters take a -5 penalty to their passive wisdom perception scores to notice hidden threats. I think that that's important, not just this, but I think that applying modifiers to passive perception is, in my opinion, one of the more overlooked aspects of it.
Yeah. See, the thing that I do though, and in a sense I do it, but I take everything into consideration when I make my DC. right?
Right.
So if you're moving at a fast pace, means you're not really paying attention to your surroundings. Your DC is going to go up. How well hidden are they? So I'm going to roll my dice. Normally, what I do is I'll roll a stealth. I'll roll a stealth. I'll add their proficiency, right? And then based off of everything else, off of that number, I come up with a DC. And you might have a passive perception of 20, but if you're literally sprinting through a dungeon, you might not see them. If they're well hidden,
Mm-hmm.
you might run right past them. That's just how it is. That passive. Now, if you're taking your time, chances are you're going to see them because you have a high passive perception. And like I've even done as a player, I'll call out. Like I did with Josh on Monday. I was like, dude, I'm walking around like my passive perception's at 21. Do I catch anything? Like I'm not rolling, right? I didn't ask to roll. I'm just seeing if there's anything that I'm picking up. I'm taking my time. I'm surveying the area. Not really looking for anything in particular. Do I catch anything? Because that still goes back to the whole thing. You could spend an entire night of Dungeons and Dragons rolling dice and not accomplishing anything. So yeah, I mean, we could literally do an entire episode just on passive everything.
And still not get through.
And still not get through it. It really depends on the DM. It really depends on how they run it because everybody sees everything a little bit different.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Unless you have it. No, I shouldn't be rude about that. What's her name? Soul.
Julie?
Yeah, Julie, do you have any questions on passive? Basically what happens is you get a passive score. It's 10 plus your modifier, and that gives you the ability to kind of just walk through things and see things or do things without having to roll the dice. It's like a passive ability. So like they even have things like, and we do, you don't use it a whole lot, but passive strength, right? You have a passive strength score, and if your strength is high enough and you have a good modifier, chances are you're going to be able to lift that. Now, if it's a huge fucking boulder, you're going to have to roll for it. But if it's like a mild boulder and your strength is like a 20, you probably pick that up. You don't need to roll for that.
Or you could just sit and roll all night to try to put or take off a capstone on a tomb.
Oh, God. Yes. Yes, you could. Fuck that tomb.
I guess we're going to roll again.
I guess, yeah. We'll come back later. I don't know.
I'll help him with it.
Does somebody have a crowbar, for Christ's sake? Oh, man. Yeah, so basically that's what passive stats are. It helps, if used properly, it helps move the game along without still taking into consideration your abilities, if that makes sense. So, passive stuff. Moving on. What do you got next, Josh?
All right, let's see. Other activities. That's like navigate, draw a map, track. Forage. Forage is probably something, we can talk about a few minutes.
So is that specifically what it says?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says that we can talk about it for a few minutes.
Okay. Okay. I'll let you guys start on this one because I'm afraid I might rant.
I mean, for me, I think it just depends on what kind of style of game you want. A lot of this stuff is, navigation, tracking, drawing maps, foraging. That gets into it gets kind of into the, it's like playing fucking like Red Alert versus Civ. Do you want to build tanks and blow each other up? Or do you want to deal with like how to get the steel to make the tank to blow each other up?
Yeah.
And it depends a lot, I think, on your style as a DM. If you want to go into kind of the logistics of how an adventuring party exists versus just, well, the party exists, so you guys are fed for the day, because I don't really feel like taking the time to deal with that. Or
Yeah.
that's not necessarily don't want to take the time, but no, I will say that take the time, because listen, like, I know we're all adults. I don't, different people are different, especially with the Rona. People have all kinds of time to, you know, but if you're like us and we get together every other week for 6 hours minus breaks, let's say, you
Yeah.
know, how much of that time do you want to deal with? Well, how are you guys feeding yourselves?
Yeah.
And I think that it just depends on, I think it just depends on what kind of style game you want to play, and yeah,
So
I mean,
the only time that I'll use this in D&D is if it's mission specific. And what I mean by that is if you're walking through the forest, I'm assuming that you've survived this long knowing how to track, how to hunt, how to prepare yourself before you go out into the woods, that you would be able to survive as far as basic concepts of feeding yourself and wiping your own butt. I'm just assuming that. But
right,
that being
right,
said, um, and it also depends on the area, right? If they know where they're going, or they're following a trail, or they have specific instructions on where to go. That being said, if part of the mission is now taking you through a desert, or through an Arctic tundra, or now we're going to start paying attention to how much water do you have, how much food do you have, how have you rested. But that's going to be specific to that point in time. If you're walking through the woods, especially in an area that you know and you just came out of town, I'm going to assume that you geared up to go out, because I don't have time. Like you said, we only get together, for the most part, we only get together once every 2 weeks. So do we really want to do a shopping episode where we're buying food?
right, and that's what ends up, in my experience, that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
I've seen it done different ways. XP to 3 rather did one where, rather than, they had a long trek, rather than doing it on a daily basis or anything like that. The way they did it was, there were 6 things that they had to account for during that trek, and the DM didn't tell them what skills were associated with what. It was just, each character is going to take one of these things and explain to me how you deal with it.
Yep.
And they did some rolling and some not. Like foraging, the druid was like, "I have good berry, so I'm just gonna good berry every day."
Yep.
And then they're fed, right? But they're committed to that now, like, so they can't take on any of the other obstacles.
Right.
So it's an interesting way to do it, and I think if a trek like that is going to be a feature in your story and help tell the story and because I do think that I do think that you need to remind your players that sometimes these things do come into consideration. I just don't
Yep.
think that it's necessary to do it on a constant basis.
No, that's what I
Like,
mean. When it's written into the story, then I'll apply. But
Well,
you
that's
know,
like
if you're going to the next town over and you've been there 30 times, do I need you to make a navigation checks?
right. I do think though also that this is something that players and the DM should talk about, because
Mm-hmm.
if provisioning, I
Yep.
think is a good example. If you look at a character sheet, days worth of rations is like 2 pounds.
Yeah.
I want to say that you start with like 20 pounds of rations.
Yeah. 10-day supply.
Most characters start with like, depending on how much that matters, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And also depending on how your DM is doing encumbrance and things like that. And are you going to make the argument that I'm going to hunt for my food or some other such thing like that? But I do think that you should have a conversation about it. But I don't think that it adds to the game to make it, unless that's what you're doing. Unless, you know, some of us do play Rust or Ark or whatever types of games like that. And if that's the type of game you want to play, if that's kind of the theme you want to go with, that's cool. I
Yeah.
mean, but
Yeah. If that's well, that's what I'm saying. Like if that's part of the adventure, right? If you're running a survival adventure,
mhm,
that's all part of that.
yeah,
And that's a discussion that you would have. Um, I mean, we haven't had to deal with it yet, because honestly, everything that I've DM'd so far, we've been in a town or near a town, close
right.
enough to a town that we're not. I mean, you're really not even camping in the woods. You might camp for like one night, but you're gonna get to town. I'm not saying that's how it's always gonna go because I guarantee that it's not. But
Right, and that's another thing. Like, for example, when we played Waterdeep, I took Outlander. Outlander, one of the features of Outlander is that like you can pretty much automatically, if I remember correctly, automatically feed your party
yep,
when you're out in the wilderness. Um, if that's not gonna matter, you might want to talk to your DM about how much that's gonna matter.
yep, yep,
But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
yeah,
well, that's like the new one that they're writing.
yeah,
That is a survival. Like you are out in the cold wilderness, and that is that's where that's gonna play really big
yep.
from what I've seen.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting, and we'll come back to that in a couple bullet points here, because resting's coming up, and that's
Yeah.
the environment.
Is that what we're on? Environment.
Yeah.
Josh, do you have anything about foraging and so when we first discussed this, I thought we meant downtime activities, which I forgot is a completely different chapter.
Yeah, that's.
Which I could rant about that for weeks.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's much later.
Oh yeah.
That might end up being next week because this is still a long chapter.
Yeah.
This is part 1.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, can we do the downtime activities from Xanathars? DM has no idea what you're talking about and says yes. You're like, okay, I want a pit fight.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing too. Like, I was talking to Josh earlier today, and like everybody should know how I feel about UA at this point. Like when it comes to races or character classes or stuff like that, I don't allow them in my games.
I can't stand half the races that aren't UA. I mean,
Like until it's published, I don't want it in my game. For the simple fact, and it's not that they're not good, because there's a lot that's good. But like, perfect example is the Artificer. There were like 12 versions of this out there. I don't want to have to guess which one we're playing. Right? So we're going to pick something that is published, that I have in my hand. I don't care if you bring me some printed. I don't want it. Like the Warforge. When it was still Unearthed Arcana, like that thing was OP as shit. I still think it's a little OP, but not nearly as bad as some of the stuff that I've seen from Unearthed Arcana. That being said, the one thing that I do enjoy about Unearthed Arcana is their downtime activities and how they do it. How I've seen some things done, but we'll talk about that at a later. I could ramble about that all night.
Yeah, that's like a whole episode.
So, yeah. So, yeah. What's next?
Falling.
It hurts.
Fall from a great height is one of the most common hazards facing an adventurer. At the end of a fall, creature takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage for every 10 feet it fell, to a maximum of 20d6. Creature lands prone unless it avoids taking damage from the fall.
I think that one's pretty cut and dry.
Yep.
Like, it's not really much to talk about. I do love doing that to people.
I think it's pretty well balanced. I mean, you know, it's cut and dry like you said, but it's pretty well like. I'm not saying that it always makes sense, but for the most part, if somebody falls, I mean, you can always like, you know, there's always like, I'm a high level character and I have 200 HP, you know, so fuck it, I'm just gonna fall from a really fall height and. But
yeah, and at that point, like. At that point, though, you have to do a superhero landing, or else it's not happening.
Of course.
Have to do the superhero landing. It's a bitch on the knees, but
what isn't at this stage?
Standing up is a bitch on the knees. Sitting down for long periods of time is a bitch on the knees. Sleeping is a bitch on the knee. Yeah, it's just bad. We're falling apart. All right. So what else do we got in this chapter so far? Just give me a general for this chapter. Bullet. Give me a list.
Suffocating, vision. Yeah.
Suffocating. Vision.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I mean, food. I think that, yeah, food and water and interacting with objects.
Okay. It is 10:40. I'm down to talk some more, but if I'm gonna do that, I need a drink.
I probably got, half hour or so
okay.
before I gotta get to bed.
Yeah, and I think some of this we're gonna fly through.
I thought some of this we already would have flown through.
Yeah, we're gonna get off on a tangent. So we'll get as far as we can. This shit's not cut in stone. But let's take a quick 5-minute break because I really need a drink. My voice is starting to get raspy. So, and as much as I love the soothing sounds of my voice, it'll start getting painful. So, Yeah, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So, see you in 5. right, we are back. And so we have, next up we have, what, suffocation?
Yep.
Okay. This one's, as a DM, hard for me to explain. You add your, just read it. You add your just read it.
A creature can hold its breath for a number of minutes equal to 1 plus its Constitution modifier, minimum of 30 seconds. When a creature runs out of breath or is choking, it can survive for a number of rounds equal to its Constitution modifier, minimum of 1 round. At the start of its next turn, it drops to 0 hit points and is dying, and it can't regain hit points or be stabilized until it can breathe again.
Yeah.
For example, a creature with a Constitution of 14 can hold its breath for 3 minutes. If it starts suffocating, it has 2 rounds to reach air before it drops to 0 hit points.
Yeah.
Of course, 14 would give you a +2 con mod, so 1 plus 2 is 3 minutes and 2 rounds.
Yeah. I have attempted to use this once in the Monday game with Bernard. But most of the time, though, if I have them going underwater, I definitely hide like a potion somewhere. If they don't find it, I'm definitely going with the rules. But also holding your breath for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Whew. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, let's math that for a second if you don't mind. Right? Like, let's say we have a character with a 16 con, so +3 con mod. You can hold your breath for 4 minutes, correct? Typical swim speed, I think we talked about, is 15 feet per 6 seconds.
Yep.
10 6-second rounds in a minute, so 150 feet a minute. So you're talking about being able to swim underwater for 600 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's
Yeah. That's a lot.
that is a lot, and that's just using straight movement. If, like we talked about before, if you allowed the player to dash on top of that, you're talking about now 1,200 feet.
Yep.
On one breath. That's tough. That's a character being able to swim underwater rather, sorry, for 4 football fields worth of space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand that's what the rules say as far as I'm understanding the rules, but that's a tough one to put together for me. As a DM, that would be a tough thing to say. Yeah, my character with relatively average, I would say, Constitution is going to swim underwater for 1,200 feet.
Yep.
I don't know. That's, like I said, that's tough for me to handle.
Yeah. How a DM handles this is he makes things in there so that they can't swim that far. Grasping vines or just combat in general. Underwater combat, dude. Underwater combat in itself could be like 2 episodes, at least.
Yeah,
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, holding your breath again. Right, it goes back to that time thing because now as a DM, I have to figure out how much time there is. So if there is no combat, I could put up a timer. You know what I mean? Like an actual visual timer for, 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Which I might do. It depends. It depends on the situation. But again, I haven't done very much underwater combat for a reason. yet. But I think there's even modifications in the Salt Marsh book.
I'm not familiar with that one. There may very well be.
I'd have to look. I know there's definitely like ship combat and stuff like that in the Salt Marsh book, but I don't know about underwater combat or water combat in general. But yeah, there's a lot to deal with once you go underwater. But yeah, that's how you suffocate. Um, so we'll dive into vision. Is that what's next?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, everybody has dark vision. Uh, right, almost every class or every race has dark vision. The ones that don't normally take a class that does get dark vision. Um, but go ahead and read what Josh. You want to read this one?
I mean, I guess. I guess. Do you just want me to? How far down do we want to talk?
Is it long?
I mean, there's lightly obscured, heavily obscured, bright light, dim light, and darkness.
Give me cliff notes.
A given area might be lightly or heavily obscured. Lightly, such as dim light, patchy fog, creatures have disadvantage on wisdom checks that rely on sight. Heavily is darkness, opaque fog, dense foliage, blocked vision entirely. Um, a creature effectively suffers from the blinded condition. Bright light, most creatures see normally. Even gloomy days provide bright light. Dim light, also called shadows. And then darkness is, well, darkness.
Yeah. And then you got magical darkness. And then you have the stripper, the darkness. Um, yeah, I mean I'll use these every once in a while. Fog to obscure vision a little bit, give them disadvantage. Um, I like throwing them in every once in a while. I don't use this too much, um, other than the general ones, right? Like daylight or actually in the game I've had it so bright that they couldn't see. Um, yeah, I mean there's not a whole lot. Not a whole lot to talk about here. If you're in darkness, you have dark vision, and you have dark vision. You can see, depending on what you have 60 to 120 feet, um, dependent. Uh, which, again, dark vision, you cannot see in total darkness. I can't stress that enough. You cannot see in total darkness. There is no light to reflect, so and even when you do see in dark vision, you see in shades of gray. Um,
Not all of them. Some of them, like, Fire Genasi does see in shades of red. Just
yeah,
throwing that out there.
yeah,
There are other colors.
yeah, but you don't see a full color spectrum when you're using dark vision. And then you have magical like Devil's Sight, um, which you can see through magical darkness. Uh, but even with that, but if you really want to screw somebody over, right, you get like regular, relatively dark, and then throw in a heavy fog. So even your people with dark vision are, are useless, depending on how mean of a DM you want to be. Um, so yeah. Anybody else want to add anything to vision? I think it's pretty cut and dry. We can talk about torchlight. So torchlight is what, 20 feet, 20 feet bright light, 10 feet dim, or is it 20 and 20?
I think it's 2020.
And then candlelight is like 5 feet, 5 and 5. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to do it.
Cirque
Most
sends
light.
his regards, even though he can't see into the darkness. Oh, nice. What's going on, bud?
It's most light sources describe what type of light they're casting pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much to say about it.
Yeah.
I think it's important. This is another one of those times. I'll harp back to this again. Passive, specifically perceptions.
Yeah.
If you have a PC who is under a condition, darkness or whatever, where they would impose disadvantage on a perception check, they should have a 5 penalty to their passive perception.
Yeah, that being said, like the worst thing, and I think like a lot of players suffer from this. So, the torch. Talk about the torch for a minute, just a quick minute. I'm just gonna touch on it. You're carrying a torch. All of a sudden, you're in combat. You drop the torch. Get into combat. Combat's over. You forget to pick up the torch, but you keep walking. And then you're like, oh yeah, I definitely picked that torch up. I'm the worst at that. I'm not gonna lie. But then again, like I said, like everybody in my campaign right now, with the exception of Noob, has dark vision. So.
And I think in mine, everyone has dark vision except Darius.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody but Darius has dark vision.
Well, yeah, I mean they hand that shit out like candy.
Yeah, and like there's there's spells. If you don't have it, and hell, you could get a Tinker's kit and make yourself a pair of goggles.
They even have one of the new expansions. They have moon-touched weapons, which when you pull them from the sheath, it creates a light.
Yeah.
Surprise! That's what the moon-touched weapon does.
Yeah.
Like the long sword that Shredder found. Spoilers, but
yeah. So. Yeah. Hey, what's going on? We were just talking about we were working our way through the handbook, and we were talking about basically adventuring, just getting over vision, kind of wrapping most of the day up. I'm sure we're gonna get into a tangent before our time's up, but
at least one. Hi, Luna. How are you?
So if you have any questions or you want to, just add to the chat, we see you. You pop up on the screen. You can chat with each other. You can chat with us. Have any questions, concerns? Just wanna chat. That's what we're here for. So, but yeah. So I think that takes care of vision. We'll hit food and water in the same breath, I think.
No problem, Jules.
No, don't think that you have to. You do not have to talk. I want people to feel comfortable engaging in the conversation that we're having. I don't want people to feel like we're just here talking to talk. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to give information and just kind of share our experiences and how we do things. Um, but I definitely, if there is something that you want to talk about, if there is a question, if you disagree with, Josh, or you
Well, if
disagree,
you disagree with me, then you're wrong. So.
right? So just don't feel like, uh, don't feel like we're just out here spitting, uh, and unless he directly disagrees with me, and in that case he is wrong. Um, and that is a true statement. Food and water.
Until you disagree with me, and then you're wrong. Okay?
Food and water. You're wrong. So what does it talk about in the book? And then we'll touch. What chapter are we on, by the way? I'm sorry.
We're on chapter 8.
Right. She's already chapter 8. So if you guys do want to hear us rant and rave about the other chapters, you can check it out on YouTube. We have pretty much started at 1.
Yeah, and don't forget to hit that follow too to see us do all of the other crazy things that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
So,
I've called him Josh since he was born, so it's weird for me, guys.
No, you called me a lot of other things. I don't think Josh is the most common.
But formally,
you thought I was a lamp for the first 5 years of my life. So anyway, so food and water.
Food and water.
It says characters who don't eat or drink suffer the effects of exhaustion. Exhaustion caused by lack of food or water can't be removed until the character eats or drinks the full required amount.
Okay.
Food. A character needs 1 pound of food per day and can make food last longer by subsisting on half rations. Eating half a pound of food in a day counts as half a day without food. A character can go without food for a number of days equal to 3, plus his or her constitution modifier.
Okay. And we touched on this a little bit already, and this, like I said, when we sit down to play, we don't have time to really pay attention to this as much. And the only time that I'll ever use these rules is if it's specific to what they're actually doing. If my goal is to set out that they are having trouble finding food and water because they're lost, or they get lost in the woods and they start to run out of rations, I'll bring this up, but that's just the game that I play.
And when in doubt, eat the halfling.
Yep. They're good. You rotisserie them. They're juicy.
Keep in mind, statistically, when I think this applies to halflings as well, but when you kill an animal, half of that weight is meat. So
yep.
The halfling isn't really going to get you that far. It's going to be the easiest.
It's just a snack, yeah.
Yeah, but
it's still the most tender because they don't do anything.
Yes, good berries. Good berries. Except for a ranger, because nobody ever plays a ranger.
Ranger's still a thing.
Nobody wants to be a ranger. Everybody wants to be a druid.
And then you're not really allowed to be a druid, depending on who you are.
Yeah, but and again, right? So there's a lot of ways around this. You got the whole Goodberry thing, um, a metric shit ton of magical items that can help with this. Um, but when we play, I don't really role play the whole eating and drinking thing unless we're talking about being at a tavern and it being alcoholic consumption. Um,
Oh yeah.
unless again, unless the story dictates, right? But this is something that they've done to themselves, and now, as a vengeful god, I need to punish them. Um, but it's in the book. It's worth talking about a little bit. But again, going back to that, uh, to the new adventure that's being published. What is the name of that? Do we know? I can't remember.
Ice something. Hold on.
Is it Icewind Dale?
Yeah, Icewind Dale. That's it.
Isn't
Oh, okay.
isn't
Yeah,
that, isn't
Icewind
that
Dale, rhyme of the Frost Maiden.
Icewind Dale? Isn't that like an '80s pop group?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. Sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, you were alive way back then. So.
Right. That's what I was saying earlier. Right. Put them in a desert, and then it changes the mechanics completely. And that's where I would use this. You know what I mean? They're crossing a desert or a tundra, or they're lost in the woods. This is where I'm going to use that. This is because now it's a part of the story. But if you're 2 hours away from a small town, or you're in a forest that um, pretty well, again, I would assume that if you survived this long, you know how to survive in the wilderness. So it's just a part of the role playing that I don't kind of partake in. I would rather have social encounters or combat encounters, or puzzles. But again, depending on the situation, right? So this in itself could be an encounter, right? You're dropped in the middle of a desert, and you only have what you have on you. So you now have to figure out which direction you're going in. You're gonna have to make checks. You're gonna have to survive on what you have. So the Goliath barbarian eats all his rations in one day, and now the the halfling looks quite appetizing. Um, so it's definitely a mechanic to know that you can use, right? Even if you don't use it the way that it's, I guess, intended. I use it more as an encounter, but that's just me. There's no wrong
God, I
way.
hope I can bring. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, God, I hope I can bring cannibalism into my game.
There's no wrong way to play the game. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're having fun, just do it. Just play. Um, so I think that pretty much like tackled the whole food and water thing, right? Unless you guys have anything to say about it.
No, I think we hit this pretty hard
Earlier.
before.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and I don't even know what we were talking about before.
I think it was food and water, but I think it was in the context of the environment, or
Oh, yeah.
Foraging.
Foraging.
Foraging, yeah.
Yeah. Which again goes to it's just kind of funny how they wrote the book, right? Because you would think that those would be together.
Yeah.
Like they're in the same chapter, but they're just we're just gonna separate them a little bit. Um, yeah, it feels like a military manual. So I think the last thing that we have is interacting with objects in the environment, right?
Yep.
I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, for that section.
Okay. This one here, this one here is my favorite part about Dungeons and Dragons. This is what sets Dungeons and Dragons apart from a video game. Amongst other things, but this is the main thing that sets it apart for me. Right? Because you can interact, use, manipulate anything in the environment. Anything. But let's talk about what the book says. Is this a small snidbit?
Nope, you deal with it, Tony.
Character's interaction with objects in an environment is often simple to resolve in the game. The player tells the DM that his or her character is doing something, such as moving a lever, and the DM describes what, if anything, happens. For example, a character might decide to pull a lever, which might in turn raise a portcullis, cause a room to flood with water, or open a secret door in a nearby wall. If the lever is rested in position, though, a character might need to force it. In such a situation, the DM might call for a strength check to see whether the character can wrench the lever into place. The DM sets the DC for any such check based on the difficulty of the task. Characters can also damage objects with their weapon spells. Objects are immune to poison and psychic damage, but otherwise they can be affected by physical, magical attacks, much like creatures can. The DM determines an object's armor class, hit points, might decide that certain objects have resistance or immunity to certain kinds of attacks. It's hard to cut a rope with a club, for example. Objects always fail strength and dexterity saving throws, and they are immune to effects that require other saves. When an object drops to 0 hit points, it breaks. Character can also attempt a strength check to break an object. The DM sets the DC for any such check.
And again, this is what sets role-playing games apart from any other game. You can completely 100% immerse yourself in the environment, and you can use anything. Um, you just got to be creative, right? Certain things that I would totally allow, like once or twice. Like if you get too crazy with it, I might change some stuff around. But perfect example is I would allow uh, as an action, okay, to reach down to the ground, grab a handful of dirt, and throw it in your opponent's eye. Um, and that would give you, I don't know, maybe it would give you or the next attacker advantage on the attack. Yeah, stuff like that. Um, when we played the guild game, my druid threw a minotaur, uh, zombie minotaur, into a lava pit. Um,
Yeah, it did.
You have enemies crossing a bridge. Well, thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we gave you some info. Hopefully we gave you something to think about. We're just wrapping up ourselves. So
Have a
thanks,
good one, Julie.
thanks for stopping in, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
See you later, Julie.
No problem. Using the environment and in creative ways, like I always go with the rule of cool on this. If you think of something creative to do, I'll follow through. Within reason. Um, but really, this is what separates role playing games from Skyrim. And I think that's all I really got to say on that subject. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is another one that's pretty subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's it, it's an important part of the game. I think that gets overlooked. I think that it's important for the player to role play from a physical perspective here. I mean, when I DM, you never want to tell your players that they can't do something that they want to do.
Right.
However, you always have to remember that your player isn't you. If you as a person, human being, know how to do something, doesn't necessarily mean your character does.
Yep.
And especially when we're talking about skill proficiencies and things like that. I've run into that a couple times. Not necessarily with items, but it does come with items because player knows how to do something in real life and describes their character doing it, even though their character has no idea what they're talking about. But yeah, it definitely can change the way the game goes. I mean, for sure. I think it's one of the things also. Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
I think it's also one of the things that sets players apart from each other. I mean, we can
Mhm.
all sit and read stat blocks and features, class features, etc. But all that whole section is almost all your, creativity coming into it, rather than you reading a stat block and saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to do this because that's what my class does."
Yep. Yeah, I agree. This is what separates players in general. Like not so much their characters, not this kind of separates players from each other. Because where I may be, I may heavily use the environment around me to give me advantage on something, or perfect example is spoiler, the troll coming out at the yawning portal, grab the oil lamps, because we didn't, nobody had a fire spell. you know just stuff like that I think is important, and that kind of makes the game for me personally. So um, Josh,
Yes.
you got anything? Would you like to add anything, sir?
Not really. I did find out that you can attack with your torch and do a fire damage. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like written right there. I never paid attention.
Yeah, it's not much though.
It's 1.
Yeah.
It's 1 point of fire damage.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's 11:27. So let's. I'm gonna let you guys do final thoughts. If there's anything that we talked about, does that conclude chapter 8?
Oh no,
Oh,
that was the first half.
okay. What do we got for next week? Let's talk about that.
Social interactions, role playing, resting, downtime activities.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, this is gonna be like probably two more sessions.
Yeah.
I mean, social interaction by itself could be an episode. But we'll get as far as we can. Chugging along. So do you guys have any final thoughts before we sign out?
Not particularly. I mean, we covered a lot of bases, so
Yeah.
I feel like I've put a lot of thoughts out there. I don't know
Yeah.
that I need necessarily final thoughts.
Yeah, we went through a lot today.
Final thought for me is, if nothing else, dwarves are usually already marinated in beer, so roasting them works.
That's true. A good ale meat when you need that pick me up. They're just a little harder to put down.
Yeah, but you have to do it like quickly,
Yeah.
or else the meat gets
spoils.
hard.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's it for us. Don't forget to stop by tomorrow around 8:30, and we will be working on some more terrain for the Monday game. Our schedule is going to change up here shortly. Josh and I have to sit down and figure out, but for right now, tomorrow is going to be a crafting day, and then coming back on Monday is Josh's game, where Josh DMs and I play Darius, a smart mouth alcoholic bard, with a
with a weird past that no one seems to know.
Yeah, and a superiority complex who likes to dress as women.
Yes. And they just jumped through a vortex portal that was blasting out cold air. Who knows where they're going to land?
The Arctic, maybe. And then Tuesday we're gonna be hopefully finishing up the build. But we got a lot to do. So for the DM crafting, so we're gonna finish up some builds. If we finish up the builds, we're gonna paint some minis. We're gonna be doing a lot of painting next week. And then Wednesday, you can find us here again, going over the next part of chapter 8. 8. Yeah.
8.
Yes.
8. Okay. Yeah. And we will be starting up the one-off challenge again shortly. We just have to work out some schedule stuff. So,
Excuse me, there is a message for you.
With that all said, again, thanks for hanging out with us. And if you want to check out some of our old episodes, you can check us out on YouTube. You can go below and hit the link. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can hit us up at twitch.tv/Letsrolldnd and just join us. We normally have the chats up unless we're doing actual live play, and even then we go on in the breaks and call out. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna hit the sack. So.
Yep, same here. See you guys later.
Later.
All right. Later.
Bye, internets.